Upfront Books presents Every Moment Matters, How the World's Best Coaches Inspire Their Athletes and Build Championship Teams. This is the author, John O'Sullivan. Introduction. Why Coaches Matter. A good coach can change a game. A great coach can change a life. John Wooden. The difference between an artist and a coach is that an artist can throw out his work at the end of the day. The coach doesn't get to start over. Terry Steiner. In early 2001, I sat in my office at the University of Vermont. It was a typical bone-chilling winter day and a quiet time of the year for an assistant college soccer coach. The phone was not ringing much, we didn't have any recruiting events to attend, and our players had just returned from winter break and could not start spring practice yet. Then the phone rang. The call was from a former player of mine from my first coaching job at Cardinal Gibbons High School in Raleigh, North Carolina. His name was Pat, and to this day, he is one of my favorite players I've ever coached. He was hardworking, honest, fiercely competitive, an inspirational leader, and just a great person, both on and off the field. It was amazing to hear his voice, and even more exciting that he was coming to visit UVM, where he was applying to medical school. As we caught up that day, he said something to me that changed me forever as a coach. John, I just wanted you to know that studying for the MCATs is really hard, and college was really hard, but every time I want to put down the books or give up early when I'm working out, I hear your voice, said Pat. You hear my voice, I asked. You keep telling me to push a little harder, do a little more, Pat explained. I keep hearing you say, was that your very best? So I pick up my book and study a little more, or I go back and do another set in the weight room. I just wanted to say thanks, Coach, because you're still coaching me every day, even though I haven't seen you in a few years. We finished up our phone call, and I hung up the phone and took a few minutes to digest what he had said. I shared the story with one of my fellow assistant coaches, and his response was, that's great. How cool that he called you. That's not great, I thought. That sucks. He remembers everything I said and did. He was one of those kids I got along with great and was pretty positive toward. But he had a lot of teammates that I wasn't a very good coach for, that I was downright cruel to at times, I think. What about all of them? For some of them, I was their last coach because they quit. When I left the office that day, I went through a Rolodex of former players in my head. I was still only 29 and not long into my coaching career, but it didn't take me long to come up with a few names that I had not been a very good coach for. It scared me. It scared me because in that moment, I realized that our words and actions as a coach leave a long-lasting impact. They can stick with a young athlete for the rest of his life. And these moments in which we speak to our athletes are often very emotional in the heat of an athletic contest, and they occur in public situations in front of friends, teammates, and families. What we say and do in that moment can make or break them. It can be a moment that builds them up and carries them through tough times, both on and off the field, or it can be a lingering thought in the back of their mind saying over and over, I'm not good enough. I am not enough. In a nutshell, I realized that every action matters, that every word matters. I realized that every moment matters. Up until that time, I had spent my coaching career looking for the magic practice session that great coaches were using. I had spent countless hours filling binder after binder with X's and O's of coaching. And what I realized in that moment shook me to the core. All those sessions, all that sport-specific knowledge was important, but it was not sufficient. There was no magic practice session or set of world-beating tactics that I was missing. Yes, that stuff was critical to know, but all of that came second to the human side of coaching. I realized in that moment that coaching was not simply an X's and O's business. Coaching was a relationship business. My players would not care how much I knew about soccer until they knew how much I cared about them as a person. And in that area, I was falling short. Fast forward to today, and I'm still trying to develop both sides of my coaching game. I'm as passionate as ever about finding and utilizing great practice sessions and building a methodology that produces creative, fast-thinking, and resilient athletes. But I'm more focused on becoming a better version of me. And I'm more focused on reaching every one of my athletes on a human level, getting to know the person and what makes her tick. I am more focused on a concept that my friend Dr. Martin Tom so eloquently iterates. You coach a child, not a sport. Coaching is about relationships. This book is different than other coaching books. It isn't about my winning season as we so often read about. Many coaches have covered that well. It's not about my losing season either, as thankfully some coaches have been vulnerable enough to write about. It is also not a collection of sport-specific X's and O's. If you can spell Google, you can find plenty of practices and training plans these days. This book is about the human side of coaching and making the most of every moment you have with your athletes. It is about finding your purpose as a coach. It is about the relationships and connections between athletes and coaches, among teammates, and among all the parents and other adults that influence how teams function and perform. It is about creating engaging training sessions that foster enjoyment and love of sport as well as development. It is a collection of stories, anecdotes, research, and interviews with some of the top coaching practitioners, sports scientists, psychologists, skill acquisition experts, and educators in the world, interspersed with a few of my own stories from nearly 3 decades of coaching. It will help you coach in a way that allows your athletes to know that you care, so they will care what you know. Sport has evolved, and so too must coaches. We need to stop thinking that we are simply transmitters of information about technique, tactics, and physical training. We are so much more than that. We're the architects of an engaging learning environment. We are there to get athletes to stretch themselves and get to a place they have never been and likely would not get to on their own. To do that, we have to be coached ourselves and never stop learning. We seem to understand as a society that children have specific needs during the school day. Therefore, we develop curriculums, and our teachers get undergraduate and advanced degrees, partake in continuing education, and have certain standards and procedures to follow in order to provide the best possible environment for the children. At 3 o'clock, the needs of the child do not change, yet we often turn them over to well-intentioned adults with little to no training in child development, education, or psychology. Not even a basic understanding of what the child in front of them needs. Often, their only qualification is that they are available. Yet when children are coached by an untrained volunteer, 26% of them do not return the following year, as opposed to a 5% dropout rate for children who play for trained coaches. Some coaches say, "I don't get these kids. I don't know what they want." Actually, we do know what they want. In her groundbreaking research into what makes sport fun and engaging for children ages 8 to 18, Amanda Visick of George Washington University discovered that the top 5 qualities children want in their coach are as follows. Number 1, respect and encouragement. Number 2, a positive role model. Number 3, clear, consistent communication. Number 4, knowledge of the sport. Number 5, a good listener. As you can see, the research shows that while kids want their coaches to know the X's and O's, they also must know that they care and are invested in the child. Many coaches are given information and some training on knowledge of the sport. But what about the other 80% of qualities that matter most? According to studies, of the 6.5 million youth coaches in the United States, fewer than 1 in 5 get any training in motivation and communication, the other 80% of what kids want from their coaches. Is it any wonder why so many kids quit? How to use this book. The purpose of this book is to help you get a better understanding of who that child is in front of you and what she needs from you to ensure she returns to sport the next season. The goal is certainly not to have you throw out everything you have ever done and start fresh. Without a doubt, if you have picked up this book, you are likely doing many things well. I just want to add to your game. Imagine if I walked into your practice and told you that everything you were doing was wrong. You would say, "No way, get out." But if I said, "How about we replace 10 minutes of this activity with 10 minutes of this one and see how it goes?" You're more likely to say, "Sure, we can try that." That is what this book is all about. Let's add a little to your game, and then, over time, add a little bit more. Let's take out the stuff that's inefficient, or may even be hurting your athletes physically or emotionally, and replace it with something better. Then, let's add more when the time's right. I have divided this book into 4 parts, and I do suggest listening to it all the way through at first. It can also be used as a resource book, as you will see that each part has multiple points of entry on specific topics. If you want to improve in a specific area, you can dive right in, and it will still make sense without going back through the entire book. The 4 parts are based upon 4 important questions that all coaches must ask themselves. They were first written about in my favorite coaching book, Inside Out Coaching by Joe Ehrmann. The 4 sections are as follows. Why do I coach? How do I coach? How does it feel to be coached by me? How do I define success? Part 1 is all about finding your why. As business guru Simon Sinek says, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. It's the same with athletes and parents. When we get down to the nitty-gritty of our why, we go on a journey of self-awareness and reflection that sets a solid foundation for our coaching and leadership. In Part 1, we explore topics such as growing in self-awareness, putting players first, and finding a higher team purpose than winning. You are far less likely to burn out or grow frustrated with the politics and ups and downs of coaching if you have a strong purpose. In Part 2, we delve into how we coach. Many of us coach the way we were coached or the way we have always done things. I was guilty of that as well. The problem is that it might not be the most effective way to help your athletes learn or to create an engaging and enjoyable environment. In this section, we will discuss some of the latest research in effective practice design, skill acquisition, how to get transfer from practice to games, communication, building a competitive culture, engaging parents, the difference between coaching boys and coaching girls, and so much more. In Part 3, we get into what it feels like to be part of your team or part of your program. In my research, and in nearly 3 decades of coaching, I have learned that the best coaches prioritize what it feels like to be a part of a team. The coaches interviewed for this book have won dozens of NCAA titles, as well as World Cups, Olympic medals, and professional championships, and they all believe that getting the feeling right is critical. In this section, we will talk about the qualities of high-performing teams as we explore how to establish core values and standards instead of rules, create a positive team environment, overcome fear and anxiety, build trust, coach your own children, and intentionally create extraordinary moments for your athletes. Finally, in Part 4, I will help you redefine success beyond such ephemeral things such as this season's championship. What does a great season really look like? How do you leave a legacy and build the next generation of coaches? How do we stay one step ahead of our competition? And how do we avoid burnout and show up each season refreshed and ready to change lives? The good news is, after hearing Parts 1 through 3, you'll just need a brief reminder. But again, start small. Maybe it's a change in practice design. Maybe it's gaining more self-awareness. Maybe it's about building a stronger, more intentional team culture. Maybe it's improving communication or the way you engage parents. This book has all of that and more. Try it out, and if it works, add a little more. Coaching is not a job. It is a calling. If you are listening to this book, I hope you realize that I believe coaching is not transactional. It should be transformational. Coaching cannot simply be a job. It must be a vocation, a calling to a place that best suits your skills, your passion, and your ability. You have taken on one of the most beautiful, powerful, and influential positions a person can ever have. By becoming a coach, you have chosen to work with athletes, both young and old, all of them needing your influence. You have chosen to guide them through the trials and tribulations of learning 2 beautiful games, sport and life. You are in a position to change their lives forever, not only by making them better athletes, but also by making them better people. You are a leader. You are a role model. You are a person who serves your athletes, and you are a person to whom they entrust their physical and emotional well-being. Never take this responsibility lightly. Coaching can be one of the most difficult jobs in the world. We work with young athletes in highly emotional and public situations. We keep score, and because of that, our work is often judged week to week, even day to day, based upon the performance of a bunch of kids, how well they play, how much they play, and where they play. And here's the kicker. Every single moment matters. Every time we coach, our words and actions can have a huge impact in the lives of our players, just like my words echoed with Pat years later. Do you still hear the words of your old coaches today? Our influence is never neutral. Our words and actions can stick with our players forever. We don't get to choose which things stick and which ones they forget. So in everything we say and do, we must be intentional. The world needs great coaches more than ever before. The world needs coaches that realize that every moment matters. The world needs you, and hopefully this book will clarify your path, leading you to become the coach your athletes want and desperately need. Are you ready? Then let's dive right in. Part 1. Why do I coach? People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And what you do simply proves what you believe. Simon Sinek. We spend the vast majority of our time in traditional coaching education learning the tools to run a great practice and coach in the competition. Intuitively, this seems to make sense. Yet whenever I ask a room full of coaches to write down 5 qualities about the best coach they ever had, knowledge of the sport usually only entails about 10 to 15% of the answers. Instead, they speak about emotional intelligence and the ability to connect. The best coaches have realized that in order to be their best coaching self, they must authentically be their best self. To do that, you need to do the inner work first. You have to know your why. Just ask 8-time NBA champion and current Golden State Warriors coach Steve Kerr. Kerr had a fantastic career as a player, winning 5 NBA championships with the Chicago Bulls and the San Antonio Spurs, and establishing himself as one of the premier three-point shooters in the history of the game. He will be forever remembered in Bulls history for hitting the championship-winning shot in Game 6 of the 1997 NBA Finals. He also had the opportunity to play under legendary coaches such as Lute Olson at Arizona, Phil Jackson with the Bulls, and Greg Popovich with the Spurs. And yet, in 2014, when he was given his first NBA head coaching job with the Golden State Warriors, he had a conversation with another coaching legend that made him realize his preparation for his first head coaching job was insufficient. Kerr had hit the ground running upon being hired by the Warriors. He spent countless hours planning his offensive and defensive game plans, studying other successful teams, building a video library of innovative game plans, visiting with coaches across multiple sports, and compiling concepts and theories that he thought would work with the Warriors. Then, in August of 2014, he was invited to attend the preseason camp of the defending Super Bowl champions, the Seattle Seahawks, and his whole paradigm shifted. Kerr had admired the Seahawks from afar and loved the joy, spirit, and camaraderie that was so evident as they demolished the Denver Broncos in Super Bowl 48. He wanted the Warriors to look like the Seahawks. When head coach Pete Carroll invited him to spend a few days with the team, Kerr jumped at the chance. He spent 2 days watching the Seahawks train and prepare for the upcoming season. On the eve of his second day, he sat down with Carroll and had a conversation that, as Kerr explained to us when he was on the Way of Champions podcast, changed his entire coaching philosophy. "How are you going to coach your team?" Carroll asked Kerr. Kerr, a bit taken aback, stammered, "You mean, like, what offense are we going to run?" "No," said Carroll, "that stuff doesn't matter. You've played forever, and you'll figure out what plays to run and how you want to defend, pick and roll, and all that stuff. I'm talking about what your day is going to look like, what practice will feel like. What are the players going to feel like when they walk into your building?" In that moment, Kerr realized that he didn't really have a plan or know the answer. He wasn't sure what practice would feel like, what the culture would be like, or whether the players would enjoy coming to work every day. After playing under some of the best coaches of all time, he had just assumed those things would take care of themselves. Carroll gave him a homework assignment. When you get back to your hotel tonight, write down 10 things that are important to you. What are the most important things to you personally in your life? When you come back tomorrow, we're going to narrow down those 10 things to 4. Those 4 principles represent you as a human being. And then Carroll gave him one final piece of advice, which has stuck with Kerr to this day and is critical for all of us listening to this book. "It doesn't matter what values I have or John Wooden had or Phil Jackson or Greg Popovich," said Carroll. "It's what matters to you because ultimately, your values have to be reflected in the way you coach. That's what makes it authentic. And if you try to use somebody else's values, the players will see right through you." When Kerr got back to his hotel that night, he thought long and hard about what really mattered to him. He also thought about what he had witnessed the last few days, from the music blaring during practice to the meticulous preparation and attentiveness at team meetings. He thought about the intense competition in each and every rep of every practice activity and the relentless optimism and interaction between coaches and players. "That's when it dawned on me," says Kerr. Pete Carroll had built his team's entire practice routine around the energy, curiosity, positivity, and joy that defined him. His team was a reflection of him because every day was based on Pete's values and what was important to him. And the combination of that wonderful culture and amazingly gifted roster had helped the Seahawks win the Super Bowl. It all made sense. Kerr returned to Carroll's office the next day and laid out his 4 values. Joy. After all, they got to play and coach sports for a living, and that should be fun. Competitiveness. The goal is ultimately to win a championship, so they must compete. Compassion. Everyone is suffering in some way or another, and it's up to us to try and help people, no matter what we do for a living. Mindfulness. Coaches and players who are mindful bring clarity of purpose to the team and perform at their best. That's great, said Carol. Now you have to build your whole day around those 4 values. Kerr asked what he meant. Well, if competitiveness is a value for you, said Carol, you guys better compete every day. And if joy is a value, then you better have some fun. And if mindfulness is a value, then you better practice it. Kerr knew he had the final piece needed to build his warrior culture. As training camp started, Kerr and his staff set about instilling those values by creating fast-paced, fun-filled practice sessions. Music blared from the loudspeakers. Practices were short and frenetic, packed with information but not drawn out forever. Video sessions were both instructional and educational, with a fair dose of fun. Coaches were not only teachers, but were also intentional about connecting with and caring for the players and their families. We knew it wouldn't happen overnight, said Kerr, but we felt that over time our players would feel our joy, sense our caring and compassion for them, recognize our competitive desire and our mindful approach to coaching. And hopefully, if we were consistent with that routine, the team would begin to take on an identity that reflected those ideals. And take on an identity they did. As Kerr so eloquently wrote in the foreword for my good friend Dr. Jerry Lynch's book, Win the Day, I'm proud to say that over time, our Warriors team has had wonderful success, mainly because we have had an incredibly talented group. The culture that has taken hold is shown in Steph Curry's joy, in Draymond Green's competitiveness, in the mindfulness of Andre Iguodala, and the compassion of Sean Livingston and Klay Thompson. It is shown in the brilliantly unselfish play of Kevin Durant, who wanted to be part of a team that connects, cares for, and sacrifices for one another, and has forged an identity of his own amongst this wonderful group of players. Ultimately, players determine a team's ultimate success. It is the coach's job to give those players a vision, to develop a routine and a pattern that is meaningful and consistent. And when those things come together, the results can be beautiful. Those things have come together quite nicely. In Kerr's first 5 seasons as a head coach, the Warriors have won 3 NBA World Championships, made 5 straight NBA Finals appearances, set the single-season record for regular season wins, and established themselves as one of the greatest basketball teams of all time. Joy, mindfulness, competitiveness, compassion. Those are the 4 principles that mattered most to Steve Kerr and had been ingrained in him as a person, the 4 principles that defined his authentic self. The lesson that Steve Kerr learned that day from Pete Carroll was a simple one. Know thyself. Your team and your program should be a reflection of you. Do the inner work first and get to know your why. So begins our journey in part 1 of this book. Lesson 1. To be a better coach, be a better you. Do the inner work first. To be a better coach, you have got to be a better you. Joe Ehrmann. The most powerful leadership tool we all have is our own example. John Wooden. Niagara Falls, New York can be a wonderful place to spend some time in the summer. The weather is sunny, the scenery is amazing, and, of course, the falls are awe-inspiring. But add in the crowds over July 4th weekend, the insane traffic at the border with Canada, and the stress of coaching in a Region 1 championship event, and what you have is a recipe for stress, anxiety, and some pretty poor coaching. Sadly, that weekend back in 2002, I was that poor coach. My team of 16-year-old boys from Vermont was playing our 3rd game of regionals, and having lost our first 2, we had already been eliminated from the competition. It was very hot and humid, and our focus and effort come the 3rd match against a very good Virginia team was not what I expected of our group. As the game wore on and the goals piled up, I got angrier and angrier, especially at one of our players, whom I will call Steve. Steve had ability, and he had strength and size, but on that day, he was getting pushed around and not putting in a very good shift, in my opinion. As my frustration grew, so did the volume of my angry words at Steve. His teammates noticed it, the parents all noticed it, and certainly Steve noticed it as he withdrew into a shell, afraid to make any mistakes and cowering at every 50-50 ball. I finally blew my top as our opponent scored their 5th goal. I yanked him out of the game with some choice words and basically ignored him as he trudged by with his head down. I didn't care. I wanted players who would compete. In my mind, Steve didn't care about his team, so why should I care about Steve? A few minutes went by when I received a tap on my shoulder. One of Steve's teammates, let's call him Evan, was a very thoughtful kid who was always connecting his teammates and reaching out to everyone in the group. "Coach," said Evan, "I think you should put Steve back in the game." "Why would I do that?" I scowled. "He's not even trying hard. He's getting killed out there." "He's not going to play soccer next year, Coach, mostly because of the way you treat him," said Evan. "That means today is his last game ever with us. He has played with us since he was 9 years old. And he is sitting over there feeling terrible, like it is all his fault. We're not going to win this game. I don't think you should have his last game end with him not playing and feeling so crappy. It's up to you." Then Evan walked away. I turned and saw Steve sitting on the bench with his head down. His friends had their arms around him. A sport he had loved as a boy had been turned into something he loathed as a young man, and I was a big reason for that. In pursuit of winning, I had lost some of my humanity. In that moment, maybe for the first time ever in the heat of competition, I didn't see a soccer player sitting there. I saw a human being. I saw Steve. All the wind went out of my sails. My anger dissipated. And for the first time in my coaching career, I thought to myself, what the heck am I doing? Steve feels like crap. I am stressed to hell and feel like crap. And none of that is going to change the outcome of this game. There's got to be a better way. I headed over to the bench and put my arm around Steve. I told him I was sorry and that I had really let him down. I told him to go finish the game and enjoy himself in his last game with his friends. I grabbed his buddy Evan and put him in as well, allowing 2 lifelong friends to play their final moments together. I wish I had thanked Evan for his wisdom and courage that day, but I'm pretty sure I did not. After all, I was a 29-year-old coach who was pretty darn sure of himself. But something definitely shifted that day. I would be lying if I told you that on one hot afternoon in Niagara Falls, everything changed forever, because that is certainly not what happened. However, I can look at those words of wisdom from 16-year-old Evan as a turning point for me, the beginning of a long evolution that still continues today. I realized that before I could try to help my players, I had to help myself. If I was going to be a better coach, I had to be a better me. There is a very specific reason that this is the first chapter of a book on coaching. It is because, in my experience, both personally and after 30 years on the sidelines and doing coaching education, most coaches never do the inner work at all. We are immediately bombarded with techniques and tactics, with strategies for running sessions, imparting knowledge, and developing winners, yet we are rarely, if ever, told to look inside first. We're told that showing vulnerability and humanity is a sign of weakness. We're told that asking players what they want and need from us is terrible coaching. We become transactional with our athletes. This is not the path to better coaching. The true path begins when we do the inner work and get to know ourselves, what makes us tick, and figure out why we coach and what our ultimate goal really is. Without this foundational knowledge, without self-awareness, we lack authenticity. And when we are not authentic, our athletes see right through us. So let's do the inner work first. This chapter is all about getting to know ourselves and our why. In it, we'll look at the following: the definition of quality coaching and why self-awareness is a key component, the difference between reacting and responding to situations, the tool I use to help coaches and teams understand how they react so that they can train themselves to respond, a simple exercise to develop your coaching purpose statement. These elements are the foundation for becoming a transformational coach. Let's explore them. What is quality coaching? The question, what is quality coaching, seems simple to answer at first, at least to the many rooms full of coaches I speak in front of each year. Though few people ever want to shout out the answer publicly, what comes to most of our minds right away are wins and championships. That is certainly the metric upon which we measure our most high-profile coaches. As I write this, the U.S. women's national soccer team has just won the 2019 World Cup, and head coach Jill Ellis has become the first female coach to win back-to-back World Cups. Her overall record in World Cup finals is 13-0-1. Yet after winning the 2015 World Cup, the United States crashed out of the 2016 Olympics in the quarterfinal stage. They went from world champions to not even medaling. Then they finished dead last in the 2017 She Believes Cup, their most high-profile.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?